Evidence in the case is now being investigated, including the reason for YNW Melly's defense team continuing to put blame on YNW Bortlen. Here's what you need to know. It all started yesterday when a report was shared stating the Stranger Things jacket YNW Melly is wearing in this video just hours after the crime is the same one that Juvie had on when they left the recording studio early on that morning. YNW Bortlen is wearing the one Sack Chaser had on too. Crazy, isn't it? Including a Facebook Live of somebody recording YNW Melly and Bortlen just hours after the passings in 2018.
Hey.
You see him? Melly still turned regardless of what happened this early morning. He's still out here being very positive. Turned still. Hey! No, still turned. Regardless of what happened, you already know.
That is how YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen were reacting just hours after the incident, as the timestamp on the Facebook Live is October 26, 2018, which is the exact day the crime happened. YNW Juvie's family saw this video when it happened. This gave YNW Juvie's father the impression that YNW Melly definitely had something to do with this crime, as why else would he be that happy just hours after? This is why we would even see a report of the father of YNW Juvie explained why he believes YNW Melly is responsible for this crime.
From the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation when I finally talked to him and Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They wasn't reacting to. They act like they didn't have take a loss at all. That's how I took it. And then when I was talking to them, I still had in the back of my mind, something's not right.
As YNW Juvie's father took his frustration out to his social medias after YNW Melly reacted to a piece of evidence during trial, and it didn't sit well with Juvie's dad. Now, in the report of YNW Melly's reaction when a firearm expert tells the judge he didn't bring the item because he has no idea what item was used for this crime, alongside Melly's reaction.
Why not?
So the first thing is I didn't have a firearm, so I can't know which I'm going to use in order to replicate any of my tests. So I can't make tests for this determination because I don't know what was used.
Okay. Do you have a...
That reaction by YNW Melly is why YNW Juvie's father was speaking about Melly inside of his vehicle. He didn't appreciate the smirky reaction by Melly, as this would even lead into the latest day of the trial. We would see YNW Juvie's mother take the stand. Her job was to clarify which one of the individuals was her son in the surveillance footage, as well as what seat YNW Melly sat in inside of the Jeep.
Can you state your name, your full legal name for the jury?
Leon Phillips.
Okay. And are you related to one of the kids in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother.
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
Positive 21915. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Jamel.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
Allegedly, YNW Juvie's father, so her husband, was the one supposed to be taking the stand on that day to clarify who was in the video. However, he's no longer allowed to be a witness on the stand as to what he posted on social media just a week ago. When YNW Juvie's mom was done on the stand, we would even then see YNW Bortlen appear inside of the courtroom.
Is that poor little Henry?
Yes, sir, he's present.
That you in the back of the
Status conference.
Come on up.
And I don't know, I guess you're already trial with co-defendant right now. We're set for October 3rd for trial.
You had a motion pending as well?
Yes, Judge. As the court, when we were here the last time, you let him go to church and stuff, you said about working, you would be subject to seeing the schedule. We filed a schedule for the next couple of months.
I saw that.
Be able to work. And I talked to his probation supervisor. She has no problem with him at all. She said that if he's going to go to work, she'd like anybody has to do, provide an itinerary, where he's going to be, how he's going to get there, how it's going to get done.
As right after it was announced, YNW Bortlen, YNW Melly's co-defendant, trial for the case will begin October 2nd, as during his small court hearing, the trial date was set, but also questions we have all been waiting to hear an answer for was answered. This could relate to the feds knowing YNW Melly was the guilty one all along, and the fact that he might turn on Bortlen to look more innocent. With the first question being asked, why did YNW Bortlen receive a bond out of jail for the last few years, but not YNW Melly?
And he was able to negotiate a bond for him because of the charges that he was charged with, because they felt that he wasn't the man, and because of his prior criminal history, which I think was very sparse. So all those things went into whether or not he was going to be given a bond. I think at the time that the bond was being argued, there was the evidence that was being presented at his bond hearing was very difficult to kind of gel together in terms of, as you've seen during the trial, right? So there's a lot of things that are going on in the trial that you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't really gel. Some things are out of whack. And that's what happens at an Arthur hearing when you're moving for bond on this type of charge.
This reveals the feds believed all the way from the start YNW Melly was the one who did the crime. Mix in that YNW Bortlen did not have a legal history. This is how YNW Bortlen received bond. However, the next question is where it gets interesting.
Is it too late for Cortland to plea?
It's like the Justin Bieber song, It's Never Too Late to Say Sorry, I think. No, I don't think it's too late. It's never too late. I've had individuals been offered pleas but turned them down in the middle of trial. I've had people offered pleas before a verdict came back. So it just depends on the case, depends on the prosecutor, depends on the actual charges. So no, it's never too late for that. He could take a plea in the middle of his case. I don't think that would happen. If he was going to take a plea, if there was going to be a deal, it would be in the middle of Melly's case.
Many online lawyers are stating that YNW Bortlen taking a plea deal in this case is now very likely, especially due to YNW Melly's lawyers practically snitching on YNW Bortlen now several times. This all started with a report of forensic expert in the YNW Melly case explains how he determined it was not a drive-by
assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive-by. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. At a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned a So I'm gonna zoom in on site F.
With this forensic expert that is a 20-year veteran in his field, YNW Melly was looking more guilty than ever in front of the jury, especially the next piece of evidence that he shared. As this report states, YNW Melly is accused to be the one using the firearm in this situation. Sergeant Williams, who said there was an item used 3 times inside of the Jeep, including 17 times outside of the Jeep.
Number, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were inside of the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that killed Christopher Thomas, where did that emanate from?
Driver's side back seat.
Okay. Is it possible for there to have been 2 inside that car?
No.
Why not?
There is no time.
As we would even see the rap lawyers speak on the amazing evidence this man was providing.
You see what the experts are doing for the prosecution, and what's interesting to me is what the defense is doing when they cross-examine these experts, which is they're essentially highlighting the prosecution's opinion. Rather than try to pick apart holes and say, what about this, what about that? They're saying, oh, this is what you're saying, right? That's a fact? Okay, and they're knocking them down, and they're pinning them down, and they're saying, okay, I'm gonna hold you to this. This is your opinion. You think you know for a fact that came after this person was bet. You think you know for a fact that these came from not a drive-by because of the trajectory, and I know bet. And so what you're going to see, what I assume, because what is the defense doing? Well, I assume they have experts who they believe are a lot more credible, who have testified a lot more times in cases, who have a lot more research and credibility based on their experience and history in the field. And those experts are going to come on and take the stand, and those experts are going to poke the holes and say, you can't possibly know when this in relation to that. You can't possibly know how. We'll see. But that's what seems like it's setting up for the defense's experts to come in.
However, here's where it starts to seem as if YNW Melly's lawyers are once again snitching out YNW Bortlen, as it's clear this expert is sharing unbelievable information, making it seem like YNW Melly definitely did the crime. Then it was time for YNW Melly's lawyers to ask him questions. The very first question that Melly's lawyer would ask is basically snitching on YNW Bortlen again. You need to hear this.
And you are aware that the person that claimed it was a drug is Cortland Henry?
I believe so. I don't know who said that it was a fight. I was just asked to say if it was a drive-by.
Okay. And you are aware that when Cortland Henry made this statement that this gentleman was nowhere around, right?
I wasn't part of the initial investigation, okay. So I don't know if that was included in Miramar's investigation with that.
Okay, but what you are saying is whoever claimed was lying.
Was incorrect.
With YNW Melly looking extremely guilty, Melly's lawyer, once again, making it very public to the jury, YNW Bortlen lied to the feds. And he lied about what happened to Sack Chaser and Juvie on the night of the crime, as this isn't even the first time Melly's lawyers are practically snitching on YNW Bortlen either. As another report would go on to share, YNW Bortlen had powder residue on his hands and a change of clothing for when he dropped off Sack Chaser and Juvie to the hospital. YNW Bortlen and YNW Melly were the only 2 men in the vehicle with them.
Evan's lies, those were his lies. Cortland Henry shows up at Memorial Hospital, Miramar. You don't see him sitting there, but where you will see him sitting is in the driver's seat of a car with 2 bodies, car riddled with bullets. And when he shows up with a change of clothing, change of shirt, powder residue on his hands, evidencing that he had discharged a firearm. And he lies.
He lies about where the incident occurred. He lies about how it occurred. And he lies about not having a phone. I think it was Miss Bradley herself who said, everybody has a phone in his pocket, not Cortland Henry. There were 3 phones.
YNW Melly's own lawyer revealed YNW Bortlen lied to the feds when they were asking him what happened to Sack Chaser and Juvie on the night of their passings. And he also revealed information we never knew, which is YNW Bortlen bringing a change of clothing to a recording studio at 4 in the morning. He would even then later reveal the interview of YNW Bortlen lying to the feds.
And I'm driving, ducking for my life, trying to make sure I don't get hit. And you telling me, you telling me about shit. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make sure I don't get hit. I'm driving. I'm trying to make sure I don't get hit. You know what I'm saying? What I'm gonna be worried about? You know what I'm saying?
I know it's not for you to worry about.
Shit crazy, bro.
But if you tell me it happened there's got to be some evidence there. There's going to be broken glass, just like there's broken glass over here from when you guys open the doors and stuff like that. Okay, there's going to be broken glass over there when the windows got out. There's going to be casings from the people at your car. Okay, there's going to be evidence over there. Okay, right now there's nothing. I kind of think I know what happened because I got information.
With nobody believing that YNW Melly's lawyers would do this to Bortlen, the famous rap lawyer would confirm this is actually YNW Melly's attorney.
And we have an absolute shell being dropped by the defense, a mic drop moment. The lead attorney on Melly's defense team telling the jury that Cortland Henry lied to police when he showed up at Memorial Hospital that morning. He lied about what happened. He lied about not having a phone on him. That Cortland Henry, this is according to Melly's attorney, that Cortland Henry showed up at that hospital with a change of clothes on, and that Cortland Henry showed up at that hospital with powder residue on his hands.
And I'll remind you, this is not even YNW Bortlen's trial yet, as this wouldn't even be the last time his name gets brought up either. Later in the trial, we would hear more evidence of YNW Bortlen having firearm residue on his hands. We would see a report of forensic scientists that cover the passings in the YNW Melly trial says co-defendant YNW Bortlen tested positive for firearm residue.
So the right hand of Cortland Henry contained 0 particles characteristic of shot residue and two component particles, and the left hand contained 1 particle characteristic of shot residue and 1 2-component particle.
Okay. And can you explain to us what that means?
Basically, overall, there was shot residue present on the hands.
It seems as if it's a high priority for YNW Melly's lawyers to continue making it very clear to the jury YNW Bortlen was in the car, YNW Bortlen lied to the feds, and YNW Bortlen had firearm residue on him. In the end, this could result in Bortlen making a plea deal now, revealing the truth, as he may not be respecting the way YNW Melly's lawyers are now handling this case. The exact same way as the family of Sack Chaser and Juvie not respecting the way that the prosecution are handling this case. As in the trial, we would see a report of judge in the YNW Melly trial ruled that undercover detective Danny Polo has to remove his mask for the remainder of the testimony. This is the same Danny Polo that said this about YNW Melly just prior in the trial.
They would quickly get checked. That happened to those 2 kids, or I don't know how old they are, those two guys that were claiming money, the Island Boys, with the fun haircut. Okay. Yeah, they were claiming to be members of, which is a set of, and they quickly got checked by almost every that could find them on social media. They got pinned, and they then had to recant and apologize.
Did you find any evidence whatsoever of any recanting or apologizing by Mr. Demmons in the records that you reviewed?
There's no recanting, there's no apologizing, there's no one calling out Mr. Demmons for being a fake.
Now that same man had to remove his mask inside of the courtroom. When looking at YNW Melly's reaction to Danny revealing his face, it seems as if YNW Melly knew exactly who this man was.
Yes, sir. You can take off your mask.
Yes, sir.
Over. State's objection, Your Honor, based on the previous issues.
Jury entering.
Danny Polo, without even realizing, made YNW Melly look extremely innocent even though he is a prosecution witness, meaning he is supposed to make Melly look guilty, yet he did the opposite.
Now, Melly's defense is now entering into cross-examination of Danny Polo. And what Danny is admitting on the stand, now Danny Polo had admitted that YNW Melly was actually being recruited by 2 different sets. And based off of the text message thread between the different individuals trying to recruit Melly, Melly was not replying. Melly stated weeks later that he was so busy doing radio interviews and shows that he just didn't have time to reply. And if you go back and read the text messages, those recruiters were basically begging Melly to reply back. And he didn't. Because Melly was an up-and-coming rapper who had a ton of money and ambition, and any of these different groups would love to have him under their roster. Because Melly wasn't interested in being a he was being labeled as somebody who was false flagging. It's possible that it was Shine that did the drive, all because Melly didn't want to be a part of their group.
As very shortly after, we would then see a new report of, the prosecutor is increasingly showing that this case really depends on very little evidence. All of these text messages are irrelevant. It shows nothing at all. No motive, no mention of the crime. It is really just pure nonsense. As YNW Melly and his lawyers know this, as this is how they have been reacting at the end of every single trial day.